47 worlds had joined the Galactic Council under Ambassador Rial's guidance. She had welcomed species with 6 legs, species that breathed methane, and species that communicated through color changes in their skin. None of them had surprised her. The universe, she believed, held no more mysteries for a diplomat of her experience. She was wrong. The Vethani vessel Quiet Dawn carried 6 diplomats toward the Sol system. Their mission was simple. A new species called humans had developed faster than light travel. They needed to be welcomed into galactic civilization. Rial expected the usual process. Primitive species, limited technology, grateful for contact with advanced cultures. Her science officer, Tenneth, studied the sensor readings as they approached. Class 4 Deathworld, he reported. High gravity, extreme temperature variations, predators on every landmass. Typical dangerous environment. Rial nodded. Deathworlds produced hardy species, but they were usually too busy surviving to build sophisticated civilizations. This visit would be brief. Entering the outer system now, the pilot announced. Rial watched through the main viewport as they passed massive gas giants. Beautiful worlds, but empty. No stations. No colonies. The humans apparently had not expanded beyond their homeworld yet. Then Tenneth made a confused sound. Ambassador, I am detecting metallic objects in the asteroid belt ahead. Mining equipment, Rial said. Young species often harvest asteroids for resources. There are thousands of them. They are industrious. That is good. Tenneth was quiet for a moment. Ambassador, there are not thousands. There are millions. Rial turned to look at him. Millions of mining stations. I do not think they are mining stations. Before she could respond, their communication system activated. A human voice filled the bridge. It was warm and friendly. Galactic Council vessel, this is Earth Defense Coordination. Welcome to the Sol system. We have been expecting you. Please proceed on your current heading. An escort will meet you shortly. Defense Coordination, not a greeting station, not a welcome center. Defense, Rial responded with standard diplomatic phrases. The humans were polite and efficient. They assigned an escort ship to guide the delegation inward. The escort arrived within the hour. It was a sleek vessel, smaller than the Quiet Dawn, but clearly advanced. Captain Diane Okonkwo introduced herself over the communication channel. Her voice was calm and professional. We will guide you safely to Earth, Ambassador. The journey will take approximately 18 hours. Please let us know if you need anything. Thank you, Captain. May I ask a question? Of course. Rial chose her words carefully. Your vessel does not appear to carry weapons. Is this normal for an escort ship? There was a pause. Then Okonkwo laughed softly. It was not a mocking laugh. It sounded almost fond. We do not need weapons on escort ships, Ambassador. Everything else handles that. Rial did not understand. She decided not to press the issue to as they traveled inward. Tenneth continued his scans. His reports grew increasingly strange. The metallic objects in the asteroid belt were not random. They were arranged in precise patterns. Overlapping fields of coverage. Redundant systems. Strategic positioning. Ambassador, Tenneth said quietly. I believe these are weapons platforms. How many? Tenneth checked his readings 3 times before answering. Approximately 4 million. Rial felt cold. That cannot be correct. I have verified the count. 4 million autonomous weapons platforms spanning the entire asteroid belt. 4 million. The entire Galactic Council military possessed perhaps 50,000 warships. This single species had built 4 million defensive installations before they had even met another civilization. Rial opened a channel to Captain Okonkwo. Captain, my science officer is detecting numerous installations in the asteroid belt. Could you tell me their purpose? Certainly, Ambassador. That is the outer shell. Basic perimeter defense. Mostly railguns and missile platforms. Fully automated. Basic defense. It was our first major project. Completed about 60 years ago. The technology is a bit outdated now, but it still works. Outdated. 4 million weapons platforms were outdated. Captain, may I ask why you built such defenses? You had not yet encountered any other species. Okonkwo was quiet for a moment. When she spoke, Her voice was thoughtful. "We did not know what was out there, Ambassador. We only knew we were not going to lose our home without making it cost more than it was worth." Rial considered this. The humans had looked up at the stars and seen danger. They had not waited for a threat to appear. They had prepared for every possible threat before any existed. The delegation continued inward, passing the gas giants. Tenneth noted unusual energy signatures on several moons. Power generation facilities far larger than any colony would need. When he asked Captain Okonkwo about them, she simply said they were backup systems. Backup systems. On moons. In the outer solar system. What were they backing up? As they approached the fourth planet, the one humans called Mars, Tenneth suddenly gripped his console. "Ambassador, you need to see this." Rial moved to his station. The sensor display showed Mars in detail. The entire planet was covered in geometric patterns, thermal signatures beneath the surface, energy readings that suggested massive underground facilities. "What is that?" Rial asked. Tenneth's voice was barely above a whisper. "Ambassador, that is not a colony. That is not a mining operation. The entire crust of that planet has been converted into a weapons installation." Rial stared at the red world growing larger in their viewport. A planet transformed into a weapon. And this was just the fourth planet. They had not yet reached Earth. For the first time in her long career, Ambassador Rial felt genuine fear. She looked at the peaceful escort ship flying alongside them. The friendly humans had welcomed them warmly. They had offered refreshments. They had asked if the temperature was comfortable. And somewhere behind those smiles, they had built a fortress that could break the entire Galactic Council. What had created such a species? What were they so afraid of? Rial did not know. But as Mars filled the viewport, she realized she needed to find out. 3 days into the journey, Tenneth stopped sleeping. The Vethani science officer spent every hour at his sensor console, recording data that made no sense. Each scan revealed more installations. Each reading showed more weapons. Each calculation produced numbers that seemed impossible. Ambassador Rial found him muttering to himself during the night cycle. "Tenneth, you must rest." "I cannot, Ambassador." His 4 eyes were wide, with something between fascination and terror. "Every time I think I have counted everything, I find more." Captain Okonkwo had offered to give them a tour of the inner system. Rial had accepted, hoping to understand what her people were dealing with. Now, she was not sure understanding was possible. Their escort ship flew alongside the quiet dawn as they passed through the asteroid belt. Okonkwo's voice came through the speakers, calm and informative. "The outer shell was humanity's first unified defense project. After we achieved world peace, the nations of Earth agreed that planetary defense should be our shared priority. You achieved world peace before building weapons." Rial asked. "We did. The weapons came because we finally stopped pointing them at each other and started wondering what else might be out there." Tenneth interrupted. "Captain, my scans show that each platform in this belt operates independently. They do not require commands from Earth." "Correct. Each platform has its own artificial intelligence. They coordinate with each other, but can function alone. If Earth goes silent, the outer shell keeps fighting." Rial felt her stomach tighten. "For how long?" "The power cores are designed to last approximately 200 years. After that, they switch to passive mode and wait for repairs that may never come." 200 years of automated warfare. Rial imagined an invasion fleet fighting through endless fire from platforms that did not need food or sleep or morale. Platforms that would keep shooting long after every human was dead. "Why would you design them that way?" she asked. Okonkwo was quiet for a moment. "Ambassador, we built these defenses hoping we would never need them. But if we ever did need them, we wanted to make sure the enemy would pay the highest possible price. Even if we lost, we wanted them to remember that Earth was not worth the cost." The delegation continued inward. Mars grew larger in the viewport, and Tenneth's readings grew more alarming. "The Red Gate," Okonkwo announced. "Our second line of defense." The planet's surface was covered in angular structures. Mountains had been hollowed out and filled with machinery. Valleys had been converted into launch facilities. The polar ice caps hid power generators that could light a small star. Mars can shelter 12 billion people indefinitely, Okonkwo explained. Underground cities, hydroponic farms, water recycling systems. If Earth falls, Mars becomes the new homeworld. And the weapons? Rial asked. Orbital defense cannons capable of cracking moons. Missile silos with enough warheads to glass a continent. Fighter bays holding 500,000 combat drones. Okonkwo paused. Mars is not a colony, Ambassador. Mars is where we make our second stand. Tenneth made a strangled sound. Rial turned to see him staring at new sensor data. Venus, he said. I am reading massive installations in the atmosphere of Venus. Okonkwo nodded. The Eye of Sol. Venus is covered in sensor platforms hidden in the acidic clouds. They track every object larger than a grain of sand that enters our system. Nothing approaches Earth without us knowing. The entire planet is a sensor array. The entire planet. The clouds make it almost impossible to detect from outside. By the time an enemy realizes Venus is watching them, we already know their fleet composition, their weapons, their shield frequencies, and their likely attack patterns. We all try to process this. A hidden eye watching everything. Mars as an underground fortress. The asteroid belt as an automated killing field. And they had not yet reached Earth. Captain, she said carefully, what else should we know about? Okonkwo smiled. Rial could hear it in her voice. Have you ever wondered why we built our civilization so close to a star, Ambassador? Stars provide energy and warmth. They do, but our star does something else. Okonkwo's voice grew serious. Mercury hosts the solar forge. We built a facility there that harnesses the sun's energy directly. It powers shields that can protect the entire inner system. That sounds defensive. It is, but we also developed the Sunspear Protocol. Tenneth looked up from his console. What is the Sunspear Protocol? We can focus the sun's energy into a directed beam, Mr. Tenneth. Point it at any location in the solar system. The result is approximately equivalent to a small star being born at that location for a few seconds. Silence filled the bridge. That Rial's voice came out as a whisper. You weaponized your own star. We did. We're not proud of it. But we agreed that if anyone tried to take our home, we would burn them out of existence. The sun gave us life, Ambassador. We decided it could also give death to anyone who threatened that life. Tenneth set down his recording device. His hands were shaking. Ambassador, he said quietly, I have run the calculations. A full council battle fleet, every ship from every member species combined, would be destroyed within 6 hours of entering this system. And that is if they somehow bypass the outer shell entirely. Rial looked at the growing sphere of Earth ahead of them. Blue oceans, green continents, white clouds. It looked peaceful. It looked beautiful. It looked like any other inhabited world. But it was wrapped in layers of death that no civilization in galactic history had ever constructed. Captain Okonkwo, Rial said, we have not yet discussed Earth's own defenses. No, Ambassador, we have not. Okonkwo's voice was warm. Those are a bit more personal. I think you should see them for yourself. The blue world waited ahead, innocent and deadly, and Rial wondered what horror she would find when they finally arrived. The dreams came to Rial on the 5th night. She saw herself standing on a world of glass. Beneath her feet, the ground pulsed with energy. Above her head, a star burned with focused rage. And all around her, machines waited in the darkness, patient and eternal, ready to destroy anything that came near. She woke, gasping for air. The quiet dawn was approaching Earth's moon. Tenneth had not left the station in 2 days. The other diplomats had stopped talking. Everyone felt the weight of what they had witnessed. Captain Okonkwo's escort ship flew beside them, cheerful and deadly. We call our moon Luna. Okonkwo explained through the communication channel. It has been our companion since before we had words. We decided it should be our final refuge as well. Rial studied the moon through the viewport. Its surface looked different from the images in council records. Strange patterns marked the gray dust, lines that were too straight to be natural. What have you done to it? She asked. Luna is humanity's last bunker. If Earth falls, if Mars falls, if everything fails, Luna holds our future. Kenneth pulled up his sensor readings. I am detecting underground facilities extending several kilometers below the surface. Storage chambers, power generators, life support systems. Correct, Okonkwo confirmed. Beneath the surface, we have preserved genetic samples of every species on Earth, seeds from every plant, cultural records from every civilization. The complete history of humanity stored in crystal memory cores that will last 1,000,000 years. Rial understood immediately. You prepared for extinction. We prepared for everything, Ambassador. Luna can shelter 2 billion people indefinitely. If something destroys Earth, our children will survive. They will have everything they need to rebuild. They will remember who they were and what they lost. The moon passed behind them. Earth filled the viewport now, blue and green and achingly beautiful. Rial had seen many homeworlds in her career. None had moved her like this one. Then she noticed the ring's point. 3 distinct bands of structures surrounded the planet. They caught the sunlight and glittered like jewelry. From a distance, they might have looked decorative. They were not decorative. The Earth rings, Okonkwo said proudly. 3 orbital bands, each with a specific purpose. Their ship passed through the outermost band first. Rial saw massive platforms bristling with weapon systems. Railguns the size of buildings. Missile batteries that could darken a sky. Energy projectors that hummed with barely contained power. The shatter line, Okonkwo explained. First orbital defense. Anything that gets past the inner planets meets this. 2,000 major platforms, 12,000 minor stations, all coordinated by central command, but capable of independent operation. The middle band was different. Sleeker structures, more refined. Rial saw ships docked at enormous stations. The Warden Network, 8,000 weapons platforms, plus our active defense fleet. This is where our warships live. If the shatter line slows an enemy down, the Warden Network destroys them. The innermost band surprised Rial. The structures that were not weapons. She saw gardens behind transparent walls, children playing in open spaces, hospitals with clean white corridors. The Haven Ring, Okonkwo said softly. Civilian evacuation stations. If Earth itself comes under direct attack, we can move 10 billion people to orbital safety within 48 hours. Each station is self-sufficient. Each one can support its population for decades. Rial stared at the Haven Ring. The other defenses had frightened her. This one broke her heart. Humanity had built a system that could destroy any fleet that approached. But they had also built a system that could save every child on their planet. The weapons and the shelters existed side by side. Death and hope in perfect balance. Captain, Rial said, may I ask you something personal? Of course, Ambassador. Do you ever look at all of this and feel afraid? Okonkwo did not answer immediately. When she spoke, her voice was thoughtful. I grew up on Earth, Ambassador. I played in parks as a child. I swam in oceans. I watched sunsets with my family. Everything I love is down there. She paused. I do not feel afraid when I look at our defenses. I feel grateful. Grateful that my children will never know the fear of being unprotected. Grateful that no one could take our home from us. Grateful that we learned to prepare instead of hoping for the best. The quiet dawn entered its final approach. They would land in a city called Geneva, where Earth's unified government waited to greet them. Tenet spoke quietly to Rial as they descended through the atmosphere. Ambassador, I have completed my analysis. Based on everything we have observed, I do not believe the Galactic Council could conquer this system. Not with our current forces. Not with 10 times our current forces. They have made their homeworld into something that cannot be taken. Rial watched clouds pass beneath them. Then we are fortunate they seem peaceful. Are they peaceful, Ambassador? Or are they simply so well defended that they do not need to be aggressive? It was a good question. Rial did not have an answer. The ship touched down on a landing pad surrounded by green fields. Humans waited to greet them. They were smiling. Some held flowers. Children waved from behind barriers. Rial stepped off the ship and breathed alien air for the first time. It smelled of grass and water and life that a woman approached. She was older, with kind eyes and silver hair. She wore simple clothing without any military insignia. Ambassador Rial, welcome to Earth. I am President Adora Mensa. We are honored by your visit. Rial looked at this gentle woman who ruled a fortress world. She looked at the smiling children who lived beneath rings of weapons. She looked at the blue sky that hid defenses capable of breaking any enemy. President Mensa, she said carefully, thank you for receiving us. I have many questions about your people. The president nodded. I imagine you do. We have prepared answers for all of them. She gestured toward a waiting vehicle. But first, please join us for dinner. You have traveled a long way. Let us feed you before we explain ourselves. Rial followed, surrounded by flowers and smiling faces and the invisible weight of 4 million weapons platforms waiting in the dark. Dinner was served in a garden. Rial had expected a military command center. She had expected armed guards and security protocols and the cold efficiency of a fortress civilization. Instead, she found herself sitting beneath flowering trees while human servers brought plates of colorful food. President Mensa sat across from her, eating something called pasta with obvious enjoyment. Ambassador, you look tense. Is the food not to your liking? Rial set down her utensil. President, I have just traveled through the most heavily defended solar system in galactic history. I watched your species weaponize planets and stars. And now I am eating dinner in a garden while children play nearby. Mensa smiled. Does that seem strange to you? It seems impossible. The president wiped her mouth with a cloth and leaned back in her chair. Ambassador, we did not build our defenses because we wanted war. We built them because we wanted peace. True peace. The kind of peace that comes from knowing nobody can hurt you. Around them, the garden continued its gentle existence. Birds sang in the trees. A fountain splashed somewhere nearby. The sounds of children laughing drifted over the walls. Your people confuse me, Rial admitted. You are the deadliest species we have ever encountered. Your system is a death trap for any invasion fleet. But you seem so ordinary. We are ordinary, Ambassador. We are teachers and farmers and artists. We fall in love and raise children and grow old together. We just happen to have built very good walls around our home. Tenneth had been silent throughout dinner. Now he spoke up. President, I have a technical question. Your orbital rings represent an enormous investment of resources. The construction must have taken generations. 87 years for the full system, Mensa confirmed. My great-grandmother helped design the Shatter Line. My grandmother worked on the Ward Network. My mother supervised the Haven Ring. I inherited a completed fortress. 4 generations, Rial said. Your family spent 4 generations building weapons. Building protection, Mensa corrected. There is a difference. A weapon exists to harm others. A defense exists to prevent harm to yourself. We have never fired our systems at anyone. We hope we never will. After dinner, Mensa took them on a walking tour of Geneva. The city was beautiful in the evening light. Old buildings stood beside modern structures. History and progress existed together in harmony. They passed a park where families were gathering for some kind of celebration. Rial stopped to watch. Human children chased each other across the grass. Parents talked and laughed. Elderly people sat on benches, watching with fond smiles. What is happening here? She asked. A neighborhood festival, Mensa said. Nothing formal. People simply gathering to enjoy each other's company. Rial studied the scene. These were the same creatures who had turned their asteroid belt into a killing field. The same creatures who could focus their star into a weapon. The same creatures who had prepared for their own extinction. They looked so happy. President, may I ask a difficult question? Please, what happened to your people? What created this need to fortify everything? Mensa's expression grew serious. She was quiet for a long moment, watching the children play. Ambassador, nothing happened to us. Nothing from outside, anyway. What happened was inside. We did terrible things to each other for thousands of years. We fought wars over land and resources and ideas. We killed millions of our own kind. We came within moments of destroying our entire civilization, not once, but several times. She turned to face Rial directly. When we finally achieved peace, we made a promise. Never again would we be victims. Not to each other. Not to anyone from the stars. We took all the energy we had spent on hurting each other and redirected it toward protection. You feared yourselves, Rial said slowly. We knew ourselves. We knew what we were capable of. If we could do such terrible things to our own kind, what might strangers do to us? What might we do to strangers if we felt threatened? Minsa shook her head. We decided to remove the possibility of war entirely. We made our home so strong that fighting us would be pointless. The festival continued around them. A child ran past, chasing a ball. Her laughter echoed across the park. And now, Rial asked, now that you have met us, now that you know the galaxy is not empty. Minsa smiled. Now we hope we were right about ourselves. We hope we built these defenses for protection and not for conquest. We hope we can be good neighbors to the galaxy instead of terrifying ones. She extended her hand toward Rial. The gesture seemed formal somehow. Ambassador, we want to join your council. We want to share our knowledge and learn from other species. We want to be part of something larger than ourselves. Rial looked at the offered hand. She looked at the peaceful city around them. She looked at the sky where 3 rings of weapons orbited silently. President, your defenses could threaten any world in council space. Yes, they could, but they will not. We built them to protect, not to attack. We have never started a war in our entire spacefaring history. We have never threatened another species. We simply made ourselves impossible to threaten. It was either the most hopeful thing Rial had ever heard or the most dangerous. She could not decide which. I will need to report to the council, she said finally. They will have concerns. Of course. We expected that. Minsa lowered her hand, still smiling. Take your time, Ambassador. Study us. Ask questions. Look through our history. We have nothing to hide. She gestured toward the festival, the gardens, the beautiful city. What you see is what we are. A people who suffered greatly, learned painful lessons, and decided to never be helpless again. That is all. No great evil. No hidden agenda. Just a species that finally grew up. Rial looked at the children playing in the fading light. She wondered what lessons they were learning. She wondered what kind of galaxy they would inherit. She wondered if they would ever need to use the weapons their ancestors built. And she wondered, most of all, if the council would accept such dangerous friends. The archives smelled of old paper and older memories. Rial had asked to see humanity's history for herself. President Minsa had granted unlimited access to every record, every document, every image from their past. The delegation spent 3 days in a vast building filled with the collected knowledge of Earth. It was the most disturbing experience of Rial's life. A human historian named Dr. Amara Ose guided them through the centuries. She was a small woman with tired eyes and a gentle voice. She spoke about horrors with the calm detachment of someone who had spent a lifetime studying them. This is the first documented war in human history, she said, showing them ancient artwork. Crude images of humans killing humans with primitive weapons. We estimate it occurred approximately 10,000 years ago. We have not stopped fighting since. The records continued forward through time. Rial watched civilizations rise and fall. She saw empires built on conquest and slavery. She saw wars fought over religion, over territory, over simple hatred of difference. Tennant stopped reviewing the material on the second day. He said he could not continue. His hands shook when he tried to hold the documents. Rial forced herself to keep looking. She saw images of something called the Holocaust. 6 million people systematically murdered for their religion. She saw the atomic bombs that destroyed 2 cities in seconds. She saw trenches filled with bodies from something called the Great War. Why are you showing us this? She finally asked Dr. Ose. Why do you want us to see your worst moments? The historian smiled sadly. Because you asked what made us build our defenses. This is your answer. We know what we are capable of doing to each other. We know the depths of our cruelty. When we looked at the stars and wondered what might be out there, we imagined beings like ourselves. You expected alien monsters. We expected beings capable of the same things we were capable of. That was more terrifying than any monster we could imagine. The archives contained more than war. Rial also saw art and music and literature. She saw humans caring for each other in times of disaster. She saw them building cities and curing diseases and reaching toward the stars with hope in their hearts. We are not only cruel, Dr. Ose explained. We are also kind. We are capable of both extremes. That is what makes us dangerous, Ambassador. We can love with all our hearts and hate with all our strength. We can build paradise and burn it down in the same generation. On the third day, Rial found records of the Unification Wars. These happened in the 22nd century. Humanity had developed weapons capable of destroying their entire planet. They stood at the edge of extinction, ready to end themselves over differences that seemed meaningless from space. Then something changed. What happened? Rial asked. How did you stop? Dr. Ose pulled up images of massive construction projects. Orbital stations being built. The first platforms of the outer shell taking shape in the asteroid belt. We found a common enemy, she said. The unknown. The darkness between the stars. We stopped fighting each other and started preparing for whatever might come from that darkness. You channeled your aggression outward. We channeled our fear outward. Fear of each other became fear of the universe. And fear of the universe became determination to survive it. The historian's voice grew soft. We converted our capacity for destruction into a capacity for protection. Every weapon system you saw, every defensive platform, every orbital ring, all of it was built by former enemies working together. Rial sat in silence for a long time. She thought about her report to the council. She thought about how to explain what she had learned. Dr. Ose, I need to ask you something. Yes, Ambassador. Are you afraid of what is out there in the galaxy? The historian laughed. It was not a happy sound. Ambassador, I am a student of human history. I have spent my life studying what my species has done to itself. I have read accounts of massacres and genocides and cruelties that would make your worst nightmares seem gentle. She met Rial's eyes directly. No, I'm not afraid of what is out there. We have already faced the most dangerous thing in the universe. We see it every time we look in a mirror. Rial felt cold. She understood now. She finally understood everything. Humanity had not built their defenses against aliens. They had built their defenses against themselves, against the part of their nature that destroyed and conquered and killed. They had looked at their own history and decided to never again be helpless before any force, including their own worst impulses. The fortress was not meant to protect Earth from the galaxy. It was meant to protect the galaxy from Earth. If humanity ever returned to their old ways, if they ever became conquerors again, the defenses would work in reverse. Any attempt to build an invasion fleet would face the same obstacles as any incoming enemy. The weapons platforms could fire inward as easily as outward. You trapped yourselves? Rial whispered to Dr. Ose nodded. We gave ourselves the capability to defend against anything, including our own nature. If we try to become what we once were, our own defenses will stop us. It is the ultimate safeguard against ourselves. Rial left the archives with a new understanding of humanity. They were not just defenders. They were prisoners of their own making, locked inside a fortress of their own design, protected from themselves as much as from the universe. It was either beautiful or terrifying. Perhaps it was both. She returned to her ship to prepare her report. The council needed to know what she had learned. They needed to understand what humanity really was. Not monsters, not saints, just a species that had stared into the darkness of their own souls and decided to chain themselves to the light. The council chamber fell silent. 200 species watched Ambassador Rial present her findings. Massive screens displayed images of Earth's defenses. The outer shell, the red gate, the solar forge, the orbital rings. Each revelation brought gasps of disbelief. In conclusion, Rial said, the Sol system represents the most heavily fortified location in known space. Conservative estimates suggest that a full assault by all Council military forces combined would result in complete destruction of our fleets within 6 hours. The chamber erupted. delegates shouted over each other. Some demanded immediate action against humanity. Others called for isolation. A few suggested preemptive strikes before humans could become aggressive. High Chancellor Morvith raised her tentacles for silence. The ancient Purani had led the council for 40 years. Her calm voice cut through the noise. Ambassador Rial, you are recommending we welcome this species as full members. I am Chancellor, despite their capability to destroy us. Because of their capability to destroy us. Confusion rippled through the assembly. Rial continued before anyone could interrupt. For 3 standard weeks, I lived among humans. I ate their food. I walked their cities. I studied their history. I watched their children play in parks beneath weapons that could crack planets. She pulled up new images on the screens. Not weapons this time. Families having dinner together. Artists creating beauty. Teachers guiding young minds. Doctors healing the sick. This is also humanity. This is what they built their fortress to protect. Not territory. Not resources. Not power. They built the greatest defensive system in galactic history to protect gardens and children in the simple act of living without fear. Admiral Korvax of the Military Council stood up. His scales glittered with agitation. Ambassador, you cannot expect us to trust a species that could eliminate us on a whim. Could they, Admiral? Could they really? Rial activated another display. I analyzed their weapon trajectories. Their defense platforms are positioned to protect against incoming attacks. They cannot be easily repositioned for offense. Their system is designed for one purpose only, and that purpose is defense. They could still threaten us. With what? Ships that are bound to their home system by defensive networks? Weapons that only fire inward at the planet they orbit? Their entire military infrastructure is built around one location. They cannot project power because they built everything to stay home. The chamber considered this. Chancellor Morvith leaned forward. Ambassador, what do you believe humanity wants from us? They want to belong. Chancellor, they spent thousands of years fighting each other because they were alone on their world with no one else to unite against. Then they achieved peace by focusing on the stars. Now, they have found us. They want to be part of our community. They want to stop being alone. Rial paused. Her next words would shape the future of galactic relations. I believe humanity is the guardian the Council has always needed. They will never threaten us because they have already chosen protection over conquest. They built walls instead of armies. They created shields instead of swords. And they did it all before they knew we existed. She looked around the chamber at the frightened faces of species who had never faced such a choice. Yes, they're dangerous. Yes, they could destroy any of us if they wanted to. But they do not want to. They only want to be safe. And if we welcome them, they will help keep us all safe. The debate lasted 4 more hours. Every argument was made. Every fear was voiced. But in the end, the vote was clear. Humanity was welcomed into the Galactic Council. Rial returned to Earth to deliver the news personally. Captain Okonkwo met her at the landing pad with a genuine smile. Ambassador, welcome back. Thank you, Captain. I bring good news. They walked together through the gardens of Geneva. The sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of orange and purple. Somewhere above them, the orbital rings caught the fading light. The Council has voted to accept humanity as full members, Rial said. You are now part of galactic civilization. Okonkwo stopped walking. For a moment, she simply stood there, looking up at the sky. Rial saw tears forming in her eyes. Thank you, Ambassador. This means everything to us. I should thank you, Captain. Your people taught me something valuable. What did we teach you? Rial considered the question. She thought about the archives and the weapons and the children and the gardens. She thought about a species that had looked at its own capacity for destruction and chosen to point it outward at the darkness instead. You taught me that the strongest beings are not those who can destroy the most. They are those who choose to protect instead. You built a fortress around your home, but you filled that fortress with love and hope and life. Okonkwo smiled through her tears. That was always the plan, Ambassador. We did not build our defenses to fight wars. We built them so no one would ever be foolish enough to start one. They stood together in the fading light, watching the stars appear one by one above the fortress world. Captain, may I ask you one final question? Of course. Now that you are part of the council, will you ever leave your fortress? Will you ever take down the walls? Okonkwo shook her head slowly. No, ambassador. The walls stay. They remind us of what we were and what we chose not to become. They stand as a warning to anyone who might threaten peace, and as a promise to ourselves that we will never be victims again. She looked at the darkening sky where the defensive platforms orbited silently. But the doors are open now. Anyone is welcome to visit. Anyone is welcome to share our home. We just want them to understand one thing. What is that? Okonkwo turned to face Rial directly. Her eyes were bright with something that might have been joy or might have been steel. We will protect anyone who needs protection. We will stand with anyone who stands with us. But if anyone tries to harm our family, galactic or human, they will learn why we spent 4 generations turning our home into the deadliest place in the universe. She extended her hand, and this time Rial took it. Welcome to the neighborhood, Ambassador. We are going to be excellent neighbors. Above them, the fortress waited in the darkness, patient and powerful and finally at peace. The galaxy had gained its guardian, and Earth had finally found its place among the stars.